I know death. He's got many faces. I look forward to seeing this one.
So after 8 seasons and many more years of anticipation, the story of Game of Thrones has finally come to a close with the 8th season. Who will win the Iron Throne? Which battles will be waged? All those questions and more have finally come to a close. Noah, what did you think of Season 8 of Game of Thrones?
Are we touching on the spoilers in this episode?
I didn't watch it, so I can't talk about it. If you want to, this is a little different. We've never done a review of a TV show. Typically, if it's a season that's just come out, we do an examination and we go into spoilers then. But we've not really done a review that's dipped right into spoilers. But because the show is out and completed, that's entirely up to you. If you want to spoil it, feel free.
I feel like I can talk about it without spoiling
You
it.
want to do spoilers at the end?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. Well, what did you think Game of Thrones Season
8? There's... Where do I start? This has kind of the Star Wars vibe to me, The Last Jedi, just in the way it split fandom. Which...
You were on the negative side of The Last Jedi fandom.
Mm-hmm.
I was to a degree, not as much as you.
But I will say... I'm not on the negative side with this.
Okay.
I did a couple of weeks ago.
You hated the
I hated the last night, a long night. Episode 3, the battle. Just I'll briefly explain if you didn't hear that, but they built up this story to this battle, and you couldn't see the thing. There was plot armor. No one real important died. Sure, there was important deaths, but not as many as should have died. And they won way too easily at the end. That I did not like that, and I feel like I was in the majority there. I think a lot of people didn't like that particular episode. But I will say, and I said this when I talked about the long night, that the first 2 episodes and the last 3 episodes I really enjoyed.
Okay. So you pretty much just as far as overall episodes, that's the only one you didn't like.
Yeah, and I'll touch on the finale later on as I continue talking. But as far as kind of the build up to episode 3 in the long night, I really love those episodes because it was kind of getting us back into the swing of Game of Thrones, and it had been 2 years. Not for me. I started the series more recent. I hadn't been with it for 8 years or for 10 years, however long it's been going. So, but I did enjoy to see all these characters, and I thought they did a good job at building the long night. You know, bringing that fear on and showing it and how it was dealt with by every single character that we grew to love and hate, and I thought it did it very well. I just gave my opinions on Long Night, so I'm not going to talk about that. But after, I felt like they redeemed themselves very well, because you could totally tell they were shifting focus from the Night King and that battle that happened to King's Landing, Cersei, and who's going to end up on the Iron Throne. And I was okay with, because episode 4 is probably one of my favorite of the season, just in terms of, because it gets back to what I really love Game of Thrones for, and it's not the battles and that kind of stuff. It's the politics and the backstabbing going on in it. I think it handles it very well, and it builds up the stakes tremendously. And on into episode 5, I think it does it. It continues it, if not better. The only reason I don't like episode 5 more and the most is because it does feel rushed, and the whole season does feel rushed, because previous seasons they've had 10 episodes to go through stories, but like they travel from Winterfell to King's Landing. They travel all the way down south to Westeros, from the north to the south, in an episode. You don't see it. If that took place in season 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5, that would have taken at least 2 episodes to get down there. It felt rushed. Because they only had 6 episodes to do. I get why they did it, because they had to wrap so much up. But it just didn't feel as rewarding of a payoff when certain things happened, because it did feel rushed.
Do you think it should have gotten more episodes? Do you think it should have been a 10
definitely.
episode?
It should have been a 10 episode season, and they tried to supplement it by doing the last 4 were hour-and-a-half episodes. But even then, I think you need 10 episodes this season, an hour-and-a-half each, just with as much as they had to wrap up. Especially since they kept so many people, which kept so many storylines in the Battle of Winterfell and the Long Night. That would have been a good way to narrow down focus, is to kill off the other lines, but as they didn't, and they wrapped up the last 2 episodes were pretty insane in terms of amount of content that we got and different stories that were capped, that it kind of felt overwhelming at times. But as a fan who's been with the series, you just loved it and wanted more of it, more and more of it as you could. Going into the season, into the finale, I will say, it's sad to see a season like this end. And I know that a bunch of these famous shows have controversial finales. Like, I hear, I know that there's split opinions on the Breaking Bad finale, the Sopranos finale, Lost finale. These big pop cultural shifting shows like Game of Thrones is. There's no way they could have won. I mean, there's no way they could have made something where everyone was on board the way everyone's been on board for this show. And I think the writers knew that, and they made a really ballsy decision at the end with what they wanted to do and how they wrapped it up. They knew, hey, not everyone's gonna love this, but this is how we're gonna end it. This is what we've been building towards. We're gonna stick to our guns, and I like that. And that's and made it kind of easier, because as soon as I finished watching it, I was starting to lean towards, oh, how could they do that? Why'd they do that? And then kind of thinking more about it, I knew I wasn't going to be happy, because not one theory that I had has ever come true about Game of Thrones. They always kept me guessing, and they always kept the fandom guessing. I never heard a theory online or in a video that happened in the finale or in the last season. So I think they do a great job at subverting expectations, whether that be good or bad. And
I think there's a lot of people upset who named their kids a certain thing.
What?
There's a lot of people who name their kids after a certain...
Like John or Danny or...
Yeah, after a
really?
certain character that... Yeah.
I believe that. I believe that 100%.
That was like big news back in the day, around the first couple seasons. That name got used a lot, like in baby naming.
Yeah.
I always thought that was stupid, because like, until you know how the show ends.
I would name my daughter Khaleesi.
Okay.
Or Missandei. Or my son Grey Worm.
Tyrion.
Oh my gosh! Speaking of Tyrion, if Peter Dinklage does not win another Emmy, which he will.
You don't think he's got enough?
No, because
did a good job this year.
He did an amazing job this year. Oh my gosh! And as he does every year, he's such a good character. He's such a good actor in everything he's in. But just in Game of Thrones, it's what started him. It just feels like he brings out, he brings out everything with this show, and you could really feel it in the closing episodes.
What'd you think of the other performances?
I thought they were great as well.
Did you like that? How well do you think the performance was handled for the heel turn?
Oh, you are getting.
Well, I'm trying not to name no names, but I'm saying for the character that goes bad, do you think their performance was... I mean, characters go bad in Game of Thrones all the time, so I feel like that's not too spoilery, but like, how did you think their performance was in carrying that twist?
Awesome. Great.
Okay.
Because it's been built up. I almost just dropped something. But it's been built up for seasons upon seasons, and I think there's a lot of backlash saying it's out of nowhere. And I don't buy it, because we've seen it time after time after time when it's just been close, but there's been something to stop it. And that particular actor or actress did a great job at conveying that inner battle with whether they want to go through with this or not, and
Sure.
and the whole season. Man, I really want to say something, but it's a spoiler. But I'll save that for after. But yeah, that particular actor or actress did an amazing job, as well as pretty much everyone else. If I say a name, then people can start narrowing
Sure.
down. But
So, I know you didn't like the longest night because of you couldn't see things and it wasn't handled well. How did you think the action and the battle scenes were handled in the rest of the episodes? Was it were the battles... I know you said you more like the politicking, but do you think the battles and like the bigger set piece moments were handled well in light of how poorly The Longest Night was handled?
yeah, because it was during the day. But I will say this. There's really not another battle after
Really?
The Long Night. I mean, they build it up, and I guess this is kind of segueing the spoilers, but
Well, hold on. I have one more question after this, and then we'll go into spoilers.
but I will say, the effects and the CGI and the way they incorporate it, when you can see it, I think it looks amazing. The dragons are amazing in the way they make them look. You can just see the amount of dollars poured into it. And the final King's Landing battle, although it's not really a battle, I felt it was shot very well. I felt like the direction and cinematography was on par with how I remember Game of Thrones. I'm gonna remember Game of Thrones. I'm not gonna remember Game of Thrones from the Long Night battle. I'm gonna remember it from the great and awesome shots that we've gotten in this world as a result of the direction and cinematography.
So last question before we get into spoilers, and I'll let you kind of loose. I know you've talked a lot about
Unchain me.
Yeah, I know you've talked a lot about how well you thought the show wrapped things up, and how it felt rushed in parts and everything. But specifically, the one thing that the show has always been about: how well do you think they handled who got the Iron Throne? Without naming any names, without naming how that we get there, do you think that was handled well?
I think how we got there and how it was presented was very, very good. I thought they did a great job. Just the individual that was put in that place, I don't agree with. So without naming names, I will say that the way we get there and the way it happens, I loved how it happened, because it put Peter Dinklage on the spotlight. He gave another Tyrion monologue, and oh man, it was awesome. It was awesome.
All right. Well, do you have any other non-spoiler thoughts that you want to say before we kind of let you?
Just that I really don't understand this whole fandom split that happens even with Star Wars. Like, I know a lot of people are saying, oh, the new trilogy's ruined, oh, JJ's never gonna save it, or they might even go to the extreme as to boycott Star Wars. And I get that you don't like it, but I mean, just because something didn't work for you doesn't give you the right to straight up tear them down. Like, and even with bad movies, you know, we can say they're bad, but we don't say, oh, that director or actor or that team should never make another movie again. Like, I mean, everyone strikes out and misses. So I think the fandom split with big franchises like this just does more harm than good, and I think it's stupid. And I think that anyone who straight up hates Game of Thrones now because Benioff and Weiss didn't do exactly what they wanted to do should conceal those opinions. Because I would love to give you a pen and paper and say, how about you write this?
Yeah, George R.R. Martin couldn't write it, apparently.
Yeah. I mean, there is rumors that he held the books back.
He confirmed that
Did
wasn't
he?
true, yeah.
Okay.
He hasn't even started on one of them. Like, he hasn't finished the next one, and then the one after that people said, oh, he has 2 ready to go. He hasn't even started on the other one. Guy is so slow. The first one came out in like the early 90s. Like, it's been a long time. Like, and it's no wonder that I don't know why they thought he was gonna catch up with the show when the books have been spread out over so many years.
Hey man, it takes a long time to write masterpieces.
I guess. Have you read the books?
No, but
Then I guess you wouldn't know.
I've heard.
I especially hate, to your point, I hate the hyperbole about people saying, refilm it and just pretend this was not
the
canonical.
petition to refilm season 8. How dare you guys? You realize how much money and time it took them 2 years to film this?
I've heard you say stuff like that too, so don't get up on your
I
high
know.
horse so much.
So call me out on it.
Refilm The Last Jedi, didn't you say that?
No, I didn't say that. I said
thought you
I
did.
don't like The Last Jedi, but I'm not saying Ryan Johnson. I'm not saying Ryan Johnson should never make another Star Wars movie.
Just because you don't like something doesn't mean ignore it from the canon. Like, that's ridiculous.
Like, point out its flaws.
If you didn't like it, you didn't like it.
If you didn't like it, you know, you didn't like it. Cool. No one's saying that you have to like it, but don't not like it just because you don't like it. I mean, don't be a sheep. That's what I'm trying to say. Don't be
Everything's so binary in this internet culture.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of binary, what? Before we get into spoilers, this is your final warning. Noah's going to give his review score, and then hop out if you haven't watched it, because then he's going to kind of dive in. What was your review for Game of Thrones Season 8?
So score?
Score.
Game of Thrones Season 8, I'll say this. It's not the best Game of Thrones season. I think I've heard the exchange of like, oh, it's the best Game of Thrones season. It's the best season in television. No, it's not there. But it is a good season. I mean, it's probably in the top 3 seasons for me, just because it's a culmination, and it does wrap it up. So I would definitely give it a middle of the road to maybe touching high Vincent We Happy.
Okay. I mean, that really surprises me because of how you rated The Longest Night a 1.
But look at it this way. I saw this one thing on YouTube of these people defending it, and they didn't like Longest Night too, but they're like, in a 20 episode season, how many episodes do you think consecutively hit the mark and actually, you know, are great memorable episodes in terms of percentage wise? But because I think that Game of Thrones season 8 was 5 out of 6 great episodes.
Okay.
I mean,
5 out of 6 great episodes, 1 really bad one.
Yeah.
1 awful one. Okay. Alright, well, that was your final warning, guys. If you want to tune in next week, make sure to listen, comment, review, subscribe on the platform of your choice. We're on Google Podcast, Apple Podcasts, Radio Public, Spotify, Breaker, Overcast, Podbean, Anchor. We are everywhere. And until next time, guys, come movie hunt with us. But if you have seen it, stick around, because Noah, I don't really know what to ask you because I haven't watched it. But yeah, just if you wanna talk about your thoughts on some of the more spoilery aspects of it.
all right. I guess we can get to the big one. I guess of who.
Khaleesi's turning heel.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't gonna do that, but we can do that too.
What was the other big one?
Who's on the throne?
Oh, I don't even know the character's name. Bran?
Yeah, the cripple.
The guy who got pushed out the window? Is he
Very
crippled
first
from that?
Yep.
He's still crippled?
Mm-hmm. once someone goes paralyzed, it's not like...
I guess. I mean, it happened so long ago. I mean, I didn't even realize he was still on the show. He looks way different now that he's not a kid.
Well, I mean, yeah, they all look really... Well, I shouldn't say that. But anyways, we can talk about the Khaleesi heel change. I think the Daenerys heel change, I thought it was great. I honestly thought it was great because up until the very beginning, you have this scene with Tyrion and Dany before they attack King's Landing, and Tyrion is asking, "Hey, I mean, if you hear the bells ring, Cersei surrendered. All you got to do is get down from Drogon and walk on up to the gates, and no one's gonna stop you." And you can just see it in her eyes that I think she's gonna flip, and it's not out of nowhere because from season to season, at the very end of season 1, when her brother gets that molten gold poured on his head, and she isn't phased at all, it's in her blood. Her dad was the Mad King. So you can tell from that scene that she has it in her to where destruction is a necessary evil in her mind, and she's always had advisors and people on her side to point her in the right direction. And in this season in particular, we just see them all kind of fall away with mainly Jon finding out that he's Targaryen and that Dany's his aunt and he doesn't want to get with Dany.
Ew.
And so...
They show have so much incest. God.
And so, I mean, there's that. So there's a great scene, I believe it's in episode 5, when... Because throughout the season, incest is in her bloodline. Targaryen's in her breed. And so... she's okay with it. She's like, love is love or whatever. And Jon's like, nah, I'm not about that.
I ain't about that life.
I may be a Targaryen by blood, but I was born and raised Stark, and we don't do that in the North. But...
looky here, you Southerners may like to do that roll tide, but here in the North.
But, yeah, throughout the season, you can see her just trying to... get him to look past that. And there's an awesome moment. The very last time she tries, he denies, and she's like, alright, I guess I'm ruling by fear, because she knows that people will follow Jon. Jon's the best leader on the show. He was born to be king, and
I was just assuming he was going to be on the throne.
Yeah, and I think everyone was assuming, and I assumed that, but I didn't want that because it seemed like an easy way out.
Sure.
So, in that Daenerys sees that Jon is the rightful heir, and everyone will follow him if he lets everyone know the secret that he is the rightful heir. He's Targaryen, and he's pledged allegiance to her, and he continuously reminds her that he's not going to turn on her, that she's his queen, and he bent the knee for a reason. And there's this awesome scene when she's just like, alright, I guess I'm going to lead by fear then. And when I heard that, I'm like, man, she's going to burn down that city. She's going to kill everyone. And when she's on top of that dragon, and you just see you hear the bells ring, and it just zooms in on her face, and you just see it click in her eyes, and she just goes mad and insane and starts literally torching the city and everyone in it. Thousands, I think hundreds of thousands of civilians just burnt to a crisp. And you can see it on Jon's face because he's watching it from above, which I will say there's a bit of plot armor in there. Nobody on their side really died that we saw. But everyone else did. All the civilians did. And you can see it on Jon's face that he's like, oh my gosh, she's crazy. But the next episode, he's still struggling with, maybe she just flipped that time. She's a good leader, and all that. So he's still willing to work with her. And then my boy Peter Dinklage talks him out of it, and then he ultimately ends up killing Dany. which I thought was a great sequence because Dany finally gets into the throne room and is at the Iron Throne. Never sits on it, by the way. Never sits on it. She touches it, never ends up sitting on it. Jon comes in, and they have this great exchange when she tries to be like, oh, we can lead together as king and queen, and stuff like that. And then Jon lets her kiss him, and then he stabs her in the side, and Khaleesi died. I thought it was a great way to kill off Dany. And not only that, her dragon, she's the mother of dragons, so I guess her final son, Drogon, comes up, sees her dead, and burns the Iron Throne. Which I will say, I don't understand how a dragon would understand that why to burn the Iron Throne. And in the moment, I didn't really care. But the Iron Throne's destroyed by Drogon's fire, and he takes up Dany, and they soar in her dead body, and they fly off. We don't know where.
All right. And something I saw people mention a lot this season, Jaime Lannister. Did he get redeemed?
No.
Oh, okay.
He had. We thought. I mean, he went up to, because at the end, before this, Cersei said that she wasn't gonna send up her army up to King's Landing to help the battle with the Night King, even after she saw a Night Walker and all that and the threat. She's like, let the North take care of it, and we'll take whatever's left. In a way to be like, all right, they're gonna destroy the North, but they'll wound him enough so we can get him. And we see Jaime kind of redeem himself by totally breaking away from his sister and coming up to help with the battle at Winterfell. And then he kind of has an arc with Brienne of Tarth, this knight that he's had an arc with, of kind of romantic thing. And they give him that redemption. He hooks up with Brienne of Tarth for a night or a couple of nights or however long. This is where the show suffers from being rushed. But then it just ultimately shows that he loved his sister. He straight up he couldn't live without her, so he went. There's a awesome scene at the end of episode 4 when he's leaving King's Landing. He's leaving Brienne of Tarth, and he straight up says, I'm a terrible person. I can't be good. I love my sister. Which, had they tried to do that in season 1, would have been disgusting. But this whole build-up made it a really good a turn for Jaime. And ultimately, Jaime and Cersei end up dying as a result of the rubble caused by Dany, which a lot of people had trouble with. I think everyone wanted Cersei to have a big death because she's the big bad. But I've said this multiple times, that she's been put on a pedestal her whole life, been made to think that she's better than everyone. So the fact that they killed her as an equal, like she's just like everyone else, I think was great.
Sure.
And Jaime ends up dying with her, with Cersei in his arms. So he isn't redeemed. I mean, he still dies a terrible person.
All right. Well, any other spoiler thoughts before we wrap things up?
This isn't necessarily a spoiler. I'm just gonna say it again. Peter Dinklage deserves best actor in a drama series. I mean, for real. He gives. There's a scene in here with Jaime, and it's when basically the whole time he's the hand of the queen, the hand of Daenerys. He's a terrible advisor. He makes terrible decisions. I mean, decision after decision is everything goes wrong because Dany's listening to him. Everything just doesn't work. He usually has Varys to balance that out, which he got burnt by Drogon because Dany found out he turned. But anyways, we see how Dinklage and Tyrion's character is kind of getting on thin ice with Dany, and how she straight up tells him, I mean, the next mistake that and advising that you give me will be your last. And then we have this, after that we have this awesome scene between Tyrion and Jaime, when you can tell, even though he's on the other team, I mean, that's still his sister, and he doesn't want to see his sister die. He doesn't want to see his sister in power, but he doesn't want to see her die. So and they have Jaime prisoner because they know they found him trying to get back to Cersei. So Tyrion has this scene where he releases Jaime, and gives them an escape plan. And Jaime's like, why are you doing this? You know you're gonna die. You know that Daenerys is gonna kill you for doing this. And he has this great emotional scene about how Jaime's the only one who hasn't bullied him as a kid and all that kind of stuff. And then he sets him free, and he's all like, and he had one line where he said something to the tune of, "Oh, I would rather save 1,000 good innocent lives than keep one bad evil life," or something like that. It was the one scene that people talk about, the Emmy winning scene, and that was it for Dinklage. And he also gives a great monologue about, which kind of explains why Bran is the I guess
King.
King, and the reasons why. And he does a great job at delivering that.
All right. Well, I guess if you've watched the first 7 seasons, watch the 8th season.
If you're still here, I don't know. And haven't seen episode 8.
But those are Noah's
Season 8.
thoughts on Game of Thrones season 8. Glad you guys could listen in with us and kind of talk about the good parts and the bad parts of this season of a much beloved show.